This program is presented by Success Society International. See you at the top. What you are today is a reflection of what you thought yesterday, and what you are going to be tomorrow will be a complete reflection of what you are thinking and doing today. No matter what you try to do, you can't change yesterday, but you can choose to change your today, and definitely that will change your tomorrow. Hello Champion Society, this is Vaibhav Nahata, your presenter for Being Champions with Vaibhav Nahata. Guess what? We have a wonderful surprise for you today. We have Mr. Matt Trenchard all the way from UAE, a certified ICF trainer, and we have Mr. Dan Wright, who is a wonderful experiential trainer in our studio today. Let's welcome them on the show. Welcome, Man and Matt.
Hi, Vaibhav.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
So we are really grateful for you coming up to our studio, and we want to discuss in the next 15 minutes. We are going to discuss about different themes of leadership and education in a wholesome. So my first question to you, Dan and Matt, in a wholesome, is that when we talk about the education system right now, in these days specifically, it's much book oriented. The students are expected to read through books, and I'm not sure about if that education is really helping them enrich themselves as individuals. So what's your thought on that, first of all, and how do you think we can improve things in a wholesome? And also I would like you, I would request Matt to add up on how things are there in Dubai as well. Thank you so much, please.
Do you want to start? So we both come from teaching background in the Middle East, and when we started back in 2008 in the UAE, it was very similar. So there were a lot of book-orientated classes. And we came in with an assistantship program, and we started delivering experiential learning and outdoors training and training for classroom lessons, but in the outdoors, doing outdoors things. And actually the same thing is beginning to trend in Nepal now. So in Nepal, the pedagogy for the last 50 years has been rote learning. So it's been teacher stands at the front, shouts out a line, the kids repeat the line, and it goes backwards and forwards throughout the day, and you learn the book and you write your notes down in the book from the teacher writing on the blackboard, and that's it. And what we tend to find now is there's a lot of schools, especially the private schools, but the government schools are following, is that they're looking to the outdoors, they're looking to experiential learning opportunities. If they're talking about English language, then they want to go to the airport and they want to listen to the tannoy for loudspeaker announcements, and then they want to do some sort of written exercise about what they hear for that day. They might want to go to the zoo, and they go to the zoo and they talk about the wild animals for science, rather than just learning in the classroom. If this is a picture of a monkey on the wall, this is a skeleton of an elephant, whatever it is, they want to actually go to the zoo and see the animals for real. So this is experiential learning. There's a lot of chances for hands-on now. So in Nepal, many schools are going away for a week or going away for a few days. They do a little bit of venture activities, a little bit of science or STEM. They do a little bit of maybe philosophy or religion or social studies or physical geography. They go hiking. So instead of just talking about wildlife, they go hiking through the wildlife. They go rafting down the rivers, and they talk about fish ecology, they talk about hydrology, they talk about water sciences. It's far more interesting now. It's far more accessible for young people. And this really ignites passion and excitement, you know.
Exactly.
When you go out rafting and you go out on the water, or you go out rock climbing, or you go out to learn about geology, or you go into the jungle and the cable car up in the Kathmandu Valley, and you go up in the cable car and you walk out in the jungle and you see all the wildlife, it ignites this passion inside you. And then people want to travel, they want to go to Africa, they want to go to India, they want to go to the Middle East, they want to go and see wildlife for real. So I think this experiential learning is really important for Nepal, and I think it will change the dynamic of how people learn.
Wonderful.
What do you think, Matt?
Very good. I can build on what Dan is saying. And I think what we're seeing here in Nepal, but also worldwide, and we're seeing it in the UAE as well, is a shift in the way that teaching itself is done, and a shift in the way that learning is done from teacher-led to student-led.
Student-led.
Old-fashioned ways, more kind of book-rote learning. Yes, the teacher says, do this, read this, copy me in this way. But the shift, and it's not this or this, it's a gradual shift over time, but a shift towards student-led is the teachers having to have in their mind, what do they need so that they can learn, so that they can
That's
drive
true,
it?
yeah.
What it does is it brings the attention of the learner, of the student, and they have to drive themselves forwards. Learning that takes place when the student is actually in charge is so much deeper and stronger and lasts so much longer.
So let's talk about something that's really important. We're talking about hands-on learning, on education in the school itself. But when we talk about, let's talk about when the students are there in the school for 6 hours, 8 hours, right? But then the other part of the day, right there, goes inside their homes, right? They spend time with their family. A lot of our viewers right now are parents and the students. So the parents expect the students to be mugging up the books all the time, and the students want to go out there and play in the field. So there is a quite conflicting situation. I've been as a trainer. That's a very common situation. I want to, the parents expect students to go through books and get good marks. Do you think that really matters?
I think yes and is the answer. I think yes, definitely there is knowledge, understanding, there is wisdom in studying from books. The and, though, is that we now knowing and we're seeing that the jobs that will exist in, say, 20 years' time when these students are in the workplace, most of those jobs do not even exist now.
Exactly.
With new technologies coming in, even now there are jobs that exist now which didn't exist 10 years ago.
That's true.
So it's a yes and. It's a yes, learn and get a great foundation. But also, these young people are going to have visions for their future that their parents are not even going to be able to see. So there has to be some freedom, I think, so that students can perceive what they're going to be stepping into, imagine their future, and then begin to walk into it.
That's so true. Dan, we would love if you could add something to that.
So my degree is outdoor and environmental education.
Okay.
And I didn't get a high grade, but that's always been irrelevant. I've never had a job interview where I've been asked what my grade was.
Okay.
I've had job interviews where they wanted to see I'd been to university because it gives some discipline. They can see that by doing a thesis, I've had the discipline to sit down and actually research it and put it together properly. But it was never important what the grade was. What was important was the subject that I did and that I was passionate about the subject. In my son's case, my son is 4. My family live here in Kathmandu.
Okay.
My daughter's 2, my son is 4. They're both in a Nepali school. They both speak Nepali. And the teachers expect them to do homework every night. And we had, until 3 months ago when I went in to talk to the school, we had arguments every night with my son to get his homework done because he wanted to come home and play, quite rightly.
Exactly.
Until he's 12, I see no necessity for homework. So I went into the school and I said to the headmaster, I don't want you to send homework home for my kids. If you feel like you need to, then rethink it because they're too young for homework. I want my kids to come home and play. I want them to interact with me. I want to be able to teach them other things like how to pick up a camera and play with the camera and just take pictures out in the garden. It doesn't matter how good the pictures are, but I want them to interact with other things that are not school-based, other life skills that are not school-based.
That's so important.
So I really feel like, yes, it's great to have a degree and it's great to be able to show that you have that disciplinary background to be able to sit down and actually follow a task through from A to B to C to D in completion. And a lot of people want to see that in a job and they'll ask you that question, are you good at following a task?
I'm curious about one thing. What happened after you talked to the principal?
The principal is really forward-thinking. The principal is from abroad.
Okay.
I won't say which country because it will totally narrow down which school it is. Okay. But he's from abroad and he's married also to a Nepali. Okay. And he agreed with me completely. And he said actually he's under a lot of pressure from the parents, the Nepalese parents, and we have Indian parents and Nepalese parents at the same school. Okay. He's under a lot of pressure for them for this book learning, this rote learning, this going home and having mountains of homework. And so he has homework, but he would personally prefer not to have homework with the kids.
About the students, you have been working personally, both of you have been working the coaching and the training field since a long time, and you have interacted with so many students in the wholesome. And Matt, you have been specifically working a lot in Dubai with students, and we had an opportunity of you interacting with students right here in Nepal as well. So what difference do you find, and what difference do you find, what gap do you find in the students there in Dubai and there in Viratnagar in Nepal?
Great question. I first came from Dubai to Nepal about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And of course I met children as well as adults. What I notice this time now being here in Nepal is that the difference between students now compared with say UAE and Dubai is so much less than it was 10 years ago. Exactly. The way of thinking, the level of English, their awareness of the world around them. So I see the gap just closing, and that gives me so much heart for Nepal as a country.
To a student who goes to school every day and has so many tuition classes, then has to do his homeworks, then has to sit with his family, how does he get time, or how does he manage to learn these real life skills? Let's take leadership at a time, and let's talk about in daily life, in a lifestyle, how we can develop those skills. Let's take it outside leadership, the communication skills or any other. How can
interpersonal
yeah,
skills.
exactly. So how can those skills be developed in a day-to-day living that we have?
This is what you learn in between.
Yes.
This is what you learn in between your classes. This is you go to your class and you do maths, and you're studying your maths book. You go home and you have dinner, but in between these activities, you're learning these skills. You're interacting with your friends. You're walking down the corridor. Someone drops their books. You bend down. You help pick up the books. Somebody notices you doing that and say, "Hey, that was a really good job. Well done." This is the stuff that you learn as you go along. You interact with people. You get to the street and there's a little old guy and he's carrying a shopping basket and he has to cross the road and he's walking really slowly with a stick, and so you walk out into the road and you stop the traffic and then you help him cross the road. This is interpersonal skills. You're learning this in between. You're learning acts of kindness, you're learning acts of leadership, you're learning acts of working together with other people, you're learning how to communicate with other people. You walk into any shop, you walk into any bank, you walk into any environment and you talk to people who are strangers, you talk to foreigners, you talk to people who speak another language, and this is communications, and this is not necessarily something that you can learn in the classroom.
Yeah.
I think we can say looking into things with a broader perspective and doing things beyond the things having done. As you said, like let's say just doing a maths, and along with doing a math, interacting with the people doing the maths, or in anything getting more involved with people. That
But I think what you're saying, and I was picking up, is that there's a sense of like, I have to learn this, say I learn math, I learn science, I learn geography, and then I have to also find the time to also learn, say, leadership or communication skills, and it's another thing I have to learn. And I think that's actually a wrong way of thinking. It's an unhelpful way of thinking. Leadership, communication, it's the whole thing. It's like, do I want to improve as a leader? Do I want to improve in my communication? Do I want to improve it in my interpersonal skills? Will I choose to pay attention to those things? So, for example, in many leaders, maybe those who are wanting to improve, there's a gap between their intent, what they're trying to do, and the impact, what they actually have. But am I able to look at the difference and recognize that I was trying to do this, but actually I got something different? Am I willing to examine myself, to see what went well, to take ownership of what I didn't do in a way that resulted in what I wanted to do, to go back, to adjust, to try it again, and eventually get to where I want to be? It's not an easy journey at all. I'm not going to say by sitting here that I am an amazing leader, but I know I'm on the journey towards being a better leader.
And you can choose to push yourself. You can choose to step outside your comfort zone. So your comfort zone, the area of life that you're used to, you know, getting up in the morning, having breakfast with your mum and dad, going to school, the same route you walk to school, the same route, sitting in the classroom, being surrounded by your normal friends. This is your comfort zone. But if you choose to step outside your comfort zone, you choose to step into an area that will challenge you and push you to change yourself. After school clubs, I mean, they're perfect. After school clubs, public speaking clubs. There were some people asked us yesterday on the training program, where can they learn public speaking? Toastmasters. I mean, you can join a Toastmasters club, you can join a public speaking club, you can join a debate club in school. You can push yourself to do things that you wouldn't normally necessarily do that extend your comfort zone. And by so doing, you can learn leadership skills, you can learn public presentation skills, you can learn to communicate better with other people, you can learn to work in a team by joining a school sports team. You can join netball or volleyball, you can learn to work well as a team. So you can really push yourself outside your comfort zone.
That's really so important. And when we are talking about these things, let's talk about being champions. Let's talk about let's talk about in today's activities of your we are champions. I'm champion, right? So when we talk about champion, it's in a nutshell so many skills. So if you, Dan, and then I'll ask you to Matt as well, if you had to say the 3 most important skills that makes a person champion, that one can develop to become a champion, what would you say those 3 things are?
I'm going to give you one skill.
Okay.
I'm going to give you one thing.
Okay.
Is attitude.
Okay.
attitude is everything. Your definition of success is 90% of your skills and what you do, 10% of your skills and what you do, but 90% of that is attitude. You've got to really want to achieve something. You've got to really desire to achieve something. You've got to really push yourself. You can sit at home and you can read a book and you can feel like a champion to yourself because it might be something that really pushes you.
Exactly.
I'm working with a girl in Hitoda at the moment and she's bedbound. She can't leave her bed. And we've provided her with a whole load of books and she's thrilled with these books. She's opening her world. But to you and I, that might not seem like a challenge, but to her, it's a huge challenge. And I think that's a really important thing. I think it's a really important thing that you challenge yourself at what you want to be challenged at. And attitude is everything. It's that desire to self-knowledge. It's that desire for learning. It's that desire to be the best that you can possibly be. To become a champion, to become successful, you need a great positive attitude.
Attitude. Okay. What would you say, Matt? Is your again going to do one thing?
I'm also going to do one thing. He stole it from me, it seems like. So my one thing would be to say, to recognize, to realize that you have inherent value. Something that you said earlier on, I saw you today. You crumpled up a 100 rupee note. And no matter what you did to it, it was still valuable.
Exactly.
So we have inherent value. The things that we do are not who we are. Yeah. So no matter how many times you failed, you are still valuable. And it's the knowledge of my own inherent value that allows me to fail and pick myself up and keep going.
That's so wonderful. Well, we are almost at the last part of today's show. And this is going to be a surprise for you. We are going for a rapid fire round. So what I do is I throw random words to you. Yes. And what will happen is first I say, let's say, food. First, Matt says a sentence, and then Dan says a sentence.
Oh, a whole sentence, or just a word, or
a sentence about the particular word.
Okay.
Let's start with food because that is a really good one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, we can see it there.
Yeah, I would do
Okay. So let's start it with food.
Okay. I like buff momos.
I love to cook and I love to experiment.
Wife.
From Iran.
My wife is from Nepal.
Happiness.
Is being out in the mountains.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's mine too.
Money.
Is a tool.
It's not that big a deal for me.
Students.
I like to work with people and I like to help people to discover themselves. So they're not really students, they're learning for themselves and I'm facilitating that. So I don't really see them as students.
We should be all lifelong students of ourselves.
Wow, that sounds so amazing. That's what we call kada in Nepali. That was wonderful. And meanwhile, we'll have the last two now. Family.
Super important.
Yeah, very important for me. I want my kids to experience the world through their eyes and I want to be a part of that.
And training.
I love training. This is what I'm all about, especially experiential learning. This is what I'm all about.
Okay.
And for me, I think training is half of learning and the other half is coaching.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan and Matt, for today's interview. We are so grateful to have you. And I would request both of you for a final message to our audience, the Champion Society watching this right now, please.
Have to think about that.
I'd say push yourself and push yourself and push yourself. Always learn. Always accept that you can learn something new every day and just continue to push yourself through your life.
From my side, I would say pay attention to yourself. So whatever anyone else says that you need to be or do, that's their opinion of you. Take notice of how you think and what excites you and brings you to life. And the more you see that, the more you'll be able to make actions and take yourself forwards and actually become the person that you were designed to be.
So finally, I would like to ask you, how was your experience in today's interview?
Well, apart from the interviewer, everything else was great. No, it was great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was very interesting for us. We were quite excited to be told we're going to be on television when we came for the training for the last 2 days. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan and Matt, for today's interview.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, the Champion Society, for watching today's episode of Being Champions. I'm sure that this interview will help you be a better you. Next Monday, 7 p.m, I'll be back with greater zeal, energy and enthusiasm only on Makhalu Television, 7 p.m, Being Champions with Vaibhav Nahata. This program is presented by Success Society International. See you at the top.